The Alaska Native Art Auction Gala is March 21st, 2026 in Anchorage, Alaska. Donate artwork by February 27th, 2026 and be eligible to win $500. Help sustain Indigenous-led media, including National Native News. Donor forms and details are found at knba.org.
Welcome to Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. Advocates for accurate depictions of Native Americans in classroom lessons fought back resistance to a Texas curriculum years in the making. Their victory comes as education officials all across the country face heightened scrutiny over education with any hint of diversity or deference to minority groups. We'll hear about the expansion of the Texas Native Studies course and the fate of other lessons aimed at updating how Native people are portrayed to students. That's all right after the news.
This is National Native News. I'm Antonia Gonzalez. The U.S. Government Accountability Office has published numbers on how many employees left the Bureau of Indian Affairs during President Trump's first year in office. The BIA focused on reducing its federal workforce through layoffs and hiring freezes. KJZZ's Gabriel Pietrozio has details.
The 31-page report finds that more than 800 employees were gone by last July. That's roughly 11%. When such restructuring occurs, the BIA is supposed to notify tribes in advance.
Tribal leaders told us that the consultations happened after the staff reductions.
Ana Maria Ortiz is director of GAO's Natural Resources and Environmental Team.
It's resulting in the loss of a lot of institutional knowledge, and it's very hard for BIA to fulfill its mission.
The BIA did not offer a comment to GAO on its original report, but tells KJZZ it is committed to increasing efficiency, accountability, and support for tribal self-determination. For National Native News, I'm Gabriel Pietrozio.
Since assuming his second term last year, President Donald Trump has leveled several executive orders that have affected Two-Spirits and the Native LGBTQ+ community. Brian Bull of Buffalo's Fire reports.
Trump's decree for federal agencies is to only recognize male and female as genders determined at conception. Trump has also banned gender-affirming care for youth. Elton Noswood is the executive director of the Two-Spirits and Native LGBTQ+ Center for Equity. He says as the White House began its onslaught against his community last year, he reached out to the National Congress of American Indians, which reactivated its Two-Spirit task force.
I had heard a community member express the frustration of why our people are not protecting us. Just that simple phrase really hit me and instilled some type of advocacy tactic to be able to begin to highlight the issues of how the Trump administration's executive orders were going to impact our communities.
Before colonization, Two-Spirits were accepted and even seen as sacred in many tribes. But over the past few centuries, Western attitudes have sparked intolerance and harassment against them and Native LGBTQ+ people. Noswood says resolutions from the NCAI help, as does carrying on events like the annual Bay Area American Indian Two-Spirit Powwow. Just being among community is healing, he adds. For National Native News, I'm Brian Bull.
Western Washington communities are applauding the State House and Senate for including full wildfire prevention funding in their proposed budgets. Isabel Charlet has more.
The decisions honor a previous legislative commitment. Glenn Ellis Jr. is a board member of the Nature Conservancy and a member of the Makah tribe. The Makah Reservation sits on the north end of the Olympic Peninsula, one of the rainiest places in the country. Ellis notes that while people rarely associate the peninsula with fire, recent years have proven otherwise.
3 years ago, we had 2 fires sprout up during November. It's just crazy to think that fire could spread in a place like this during that time. We get 119 inches of rain a year. We're a temperate rainforest.
Funds from what was known as House Bill 1168 that passed 5 years ago have helped 175 small forest landowners in 3 counties reduce wildfire risk through thinning and prescribed burns. I'm Isabel Charlet.
And I'm Antonia Gonzalez.
National Native News is produced by Koahnic Broadcast Corporation with funding by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Support by the American Indian College Fund, providing millions of dollars of scholarships to Native students every year. Applications are accepted through May 31st at collegefund.org or by phone at 800-766-FUND.
Hear that? Tribal college faculty do so much, one can't say it all here. Nothing but respect. Visit mostthorough.jobdescription.com. The American Indian College Fund supports this program.
Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.
This is Native America Calling. I'm Sean Spruce. Advocates working to accurately portray Native Americans in lessons for a Texas school district scored a victory when the State Board of Education renewed a Native Studies course that was years in the making. The approval comes at a time when the Trump administration and state officials are pushing to scrub any hints of diversity from public school classrooms. Among other grievances, opponents of the Texas Native Studies course worried instruction about the Catholic Church's role in Indian boarding schools might demoralize Christian students. Similar Native Studies courses and implemented curriculum across the nation are facing defunding and removal after years of advocacy from educators, Native-led nonprofits, and tribes. We'll talk with educators about the ongoing effort to keep Native perspectives in K-12 classrooms. Of course, listeners, you can join our conversation too. Are Native Studies courses in your schools on the chopping block? Give us a call. Let us know. The number is 1-800-996-2848. That is also 1-800-99-NATIVE. Joining us now from San Antonio, Texas, is Cheyenne Rendon. She is the Senior Policy Officer for the Society of Native Nations and a member of AIM Central Texas. She is Apache and Navajo. Hello, Cheyenne. Welcome to Native America Calling.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Joining us from Grand Prairie, Texas, which is a suburb of Dallas, we have Stephen Silva Brave. He's a parent, a licensed social worker, and also a PhD student in social work. He is Chichanju Lakota from the Rosebud Sioux tribe. Stephen, hello to you as well, and welcome to our show.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Joining us from Bismarck, North Dakota, we have Sashay Shetler. She is the Assistant Director in the Office of Indian and Multicultural Education for the North Dakota Office of Public Instruction and also a member of the National Johnson O'Malley Association Board of Directors representing Region 5. She is Hidatsa and Nueta from the MHA Nation. Sashay, hello. Welcome to Native America Calling.
Hey, Sean. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat.
I'm excited to have all of you on the show, and let's get this chat started with Cheyenne Rendon first, because Cheyenne, these American Indian Studies courses offered in Texas schools, they're what's called an innovative course. What does that mean exactly, and are these required courses?
That's a great question. So there are 3 areas of real categories. So that would be the best way to explain it. There's text-based, innovative, and then special topics. Innovative meaning that there's a standard approval by the SBOA, School Board of Education, and there's a district level approval, which is the school board, and then it is an elective credit in social studies. The other 2, the special topics and text-based, they have a different level of approvals, but regardless, it all has to get approved. So that is how it is categorized under innovative.
Okay, so these are elective courses not required for graduation. Do a lot of students take the course?
We've seen a great turnout, and now recently with the approval, the adoption back in June of 2025, we've seen an increase in numbers. So now it's up to our communities to start adopting, our community leaders, our parents, the students to start asking and adopting this course.
Okay. Now, these courses on Native Studies, they began more than 5 years ago. Was there opposition to them at the time?
Oh, goodness. There sure was. And there still is. There are many false statements out there surrounding the true agenda of having this innovative course, whether it was disguised as suitable for our audience, for our students. There's just so much pushback even now, but I do really want to reinforce that this does comply with all the laws. It had to get approved. It's just the misunderstanding or the chosen ignorance, I would say, of refusing the facts that this is needed, this is healthy, this is a standard that we have met and we should still continue to pursue. So I can go on and on about that specifically. I mean, the retaliation's been ridiculous.
I'm curious, you used the word suitable. Were these courses suitable? That was a question that was posed 5 years ago. And that's like another subjective term, kind of like innovative course. What do they mean by that? By what would have been suitable? What was not suitable in their view?
Right. Well, that's a great question. So one of the school board members during their comments had made a mention about a suitable educational materials that promote patriotism, lawful activity, and other values that should apply to innovative courses like the Ames class. And if there is concern around that, it needs to go through a suitability standard or a suitability review. There was misunderstanding or false information put out there that this course did not go through a suitability review, which it did. It passed the full suitability review. And essentially what they do is make sure that the language is associated with the teaching, the resources are in alignment with TEA standards. It goes through a very, very, very articulated review with the resources. If you use one quote and they reuse a word that might not be suitable for now, language now that is considered a woke agenda or language that is outdated, then we have to go back and remove those resources. But that is all throughout the process of the suitability review. And since Ames did go through that suitability review, there is no reason why it should not have been adopted, which it is now, but it was just another delay tactic and very thorough, very thorough.
All right. It sounds like it. Now, the course was up for renewal and it did ultimately pass through the Board of Education, but I'm interested in knowing to what extent did the discussion change between 5 years ago and today? Because it sounds like it maybe didn't change all that much.
Well, that is a good starting point. There are languages that we know as Indigenous people that we use in our day-to-day discussion. There's no ill intent when we use certain language, but when it's being taught at a different level with a different environment of understanding, here's a good example: Indigenous versus Native American, and quotes like land back. Those things might be very hard dialogues to have, and it could be interpreted intentionally or not, how the student wants to receive that information, right? So from 5 years ago, when we were under lockdown of COVID, there wasn't too much concern around if we're using the politically correct word for identifying Indigenous people. There wasn't too much concern. There was a level of respect that was, an underlining tone, an understanding that we should speak to each other with respect. But fast forward 5 years from now, when we went up for public comment, there was a clear censor on us as community members. So apply that as that censorship for just having the right for free speech and apply that into the innovative studies. There was a lot of language that had to be adapted in order to be suitable.
Okay. Well, I apologize. The discussion did change significantly then. Cheyenne, what about the parents, other stakeholders? What was their thought on this?
I honestly, when it came to the parents, there was no concern other than, will this get adopted? The concern was, will my children be able to see true and accurate history being taught? Will my children be able to see correct and accurate representation in history? So there was a lot of support. There is a lot of support out there. And kind of going back to one of your questions, it's in their ballpark to go to their district now and get this as adopted into their course at the district level as a curriculum. So a lot of positive feedback, many people going out to advocate on behalf of Ames. I mean, even myself, I can't wait till my son gets of age to be able to see his lineage in these textbooks in history.
Right. And tell me more, what exactly do students learn in this course, and how is it different than maybe what was offered before?
Yeah, so it varies on language, right? There's a standard that is adopted through TEA, and that standard is, it's resourced out. It's our teachers are given that information, and then how they deliver it, that's all up to the teacher. It's all how they deliver that message, right? You can read something out of the textbook, then you can reiterate it one way. So that that's tricky because I know if I go to one teacher and they teach me something, they might have a different standard of teaching, but truthfully, it goes back to what they learn is accurate history, especially with Texas being one of the biggest states in the United States. Texas having 3 federally recognized tribes living and residing in Texas, but none of them come from Texas, right? So if our history doesn't include teaching, wow, all these indigenous people in Texas, but none of them come from the origin of this land, they have a deeper understanding of respect for the land, stewardship around it, the history, the structure of why the missions are the way they are because of the springs, the true original people of the lands, not the 3 federally that currently reside there. So there's a lot of rich history behind it, from stewardship to understanding the relationship with us and the land, from landforms and places and sacred sites. It's very rich. It's very thorough, and truthfully, it is probably an elective course that most students need to take in order for their spirit to have some type of connection to this formed learning of school, of the education system.
All right. Thank you, Cheyenne. We're going to take a short break. We'll come back. We'll continue this conversation. We have Cheyenne Rendon on the line in San Antonio, Texas, and other guests as well. Phone lines are open for folks who would like to join us. What are your thoughts with regard to Native course content possibly being on the chopping block? 1-800-996-2848. Give us a call. The Seneca Nation is working to change a state law that gives New York automatic criminal and civil jurisdiction on tribal lands. A new bill would first establish a way to reach consensus on legal issues that might run into confusion. We'll hear about that effort and other tribal efforts to assert sovereignty on the next Native America Calling.
The Gathering of Nations Powwow's last dance takes place this April 24th and 25th at Expo, New Mexico. Gone's last horse and rider regalia parade takes place at 4 p.m. both days. The Traders Market will be in the Creative Arts and Lujan buildings both days. See the outgoing of current Miss Indian World, Dania Wawasuk, Saturday, April 25th. Get your tickets at gatheringofnations.com and at the gates.
Thank you for tuning in to Native America Calling. We're talking today about preserving Native curricula in schools, despite ongoing efforts to push back on diversity. You can join this conversation. just give us a call. The number's 1-800-996-2848. Would like to hear from some listeners. What are your thoughts? What are your perspectives with regard to Native course content, Native-specific course content? Let us know. 1-800-99-NATIVE. Our next guest, Stephen Silva Brave, joins us now from Grand Prairie, Texas. And Stephen, you were involved in developing the Native American Studies course that we've been talking about, and we got some details earlier from Cheyenne. How did you approach this project, this goal of yours, and what did you want to see included that wasn't being addressed before for Texas students?
I want to real quick expand on a couple of things that Cheyenne was saying. First, I want to clarify, we started working on the course in 2020, so it's been 6 years. And in the beginning, the state of Texas Board of Education came to us to create an American Indian Native Studies course. So it was a totally different relationship back then. The state of Texas wanted what they call ethnic studies courses. They had a couple years before rolled out Mexican American studies, and then they rolled out African American studies, and then they said now it's time to do American Indian and Asian American studies. They actually wanted it. I think around 2022 is when it started becoming politicized. And then by 2024, 25, it's like a contested course, the opposite of how it started.
All right. Okay. Good clarification. Thank you, Stephen.
But as far as the thing that excites me about the course and what it was all along and what it is in the districts like Grand Prairie where it's being offered is it's more than a history course. It teaches on geography, science, culture, and we designed it so that more than half of the course, when we're talking about those areas, are talking about people and culture and things like that that are still happening and living today. Because pretty much if you're going to learn anything about indigenous people in your regular courses in Texas, and I suspect throughout the rest of the country, it's always going to be in historical context. So we wanted to make sure that this course kind of did the opposite and showed that we're still here. And to me, that's the great thing about it.
Okay. Stephen, what was the feedback then from this? Sounds like a really comprehensive course with a lot of really interesting subtopics. What did you hear from students, both native and non-native alike?
Yeah, and just to be clear, in Grand Prairie ISD, where the school first rolled out as a pilot course and where it's been offered the longest, there's a very few. It's 1% native, right? So it's mostly non-natives that are taking the course. Mm-hmm. But we also have to be mindful that there is a lot of people indigenous to like Mexico and things like that still identify as indigenous. But the most of the feedback we get is from non-natives, and it's almost 100% positive. I personally had a friend of my son who I believe that the kid was probably 17 years old at the time, white young man. He came up to me at an event and said, "Hey, you're Chris's dad, right?" I was like, "Yes." And he said, "You helped make the American Indian Native Studies course?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh man, that is my favorite course." He said, "I don't look forward to coming to school for any class except for that class." And to me, to have first of all, 17-year-old kids don't like to talk to adults anyway. For him to feel the need to come up to me and tell me that, I was like, wow, it must be having an impact on his life.
Yeah, for sure. Stephen, what got you involved with Native studies in schools? You're a parent, obviously.
Yeah, I was trying to be a gatekeeper, to be honest. So in 2020, when I started seeing a flyer going around about come hear about the American Indian Studies course that will come to Grand Prairie, Texas. And I had 2 kids at the time in Grand Prairie schools. And I'm like, what? There's hardly any natives here. What is this course going to be about? What is it like? And so I felt like, as one of the parents involved with the American Indian education program in the district, and there was like 4 families active in that, I'm like, I felt like it was my duty to come and see what are they going to be teaching our kids. But I was surprised that it was actually an organization called American Indian Heritage Day in Texas, which is a well-respected Native organization here in North Texas, and the Grand Prairie Independent School District and the Texas State members of the Texas State Board of Education asking for community input into the course and looking for community members, tribal leaders, different things like that to come together and help write the curriculum. It was the opposite of what I thought it was going to be in the beginning.
Okay. Stephen, what does the future hold now? I mean, okay, so the course was up for renewal. It was approved. Will it come up for renewal again in another 5 years, or is it good from here on out? I'm not clear yet. What is the long-term horizon here?
Yeah, it's a very confusing process in Texas. So as an innovative course, we're good for 5 years, which was actually kind of unique because before it was 2 years. So you go from a pilot course, which really no one except for one district really wants to have a pilot course. Then you go to innovative, where it's at now, and they gave us extra time on it. But really, what you want to get to is which Cheyenne was mentioning, what they call a TEKS-based course, which we are there. We have gone. So TEKS stands for teaching, education, and knowledge, or something like that. We from day one developed the course. We were made to develop the course to match the Texas TEKS. So it's there. We would dream of them approving to doing the next step, which is community feedback, by the way, to get it then into that TEKS status, and a lot more districts would take it on. If it's innovative status, some districts don't want to take it on because, especially here in Texas, even though it's said that it's good for 5 years, it seems like a lot of times they can change laws and rules and stuff like that at a whim. Mm-hmm. And people are on a whim, and people don't want to train teachers on how to teach the course, recruit the course, and then for it to just go away.
Sure.
So we really want it to be solidified on the TEKS, on the way that it was written and the rigorous standards that it went through to meet those qualifications. But on another hand, maybe we don't want to rock the boat and try to get more districts to accept it as is with the innovative status. But yeah, it's really kind of up in the air. We're supposed to be safe for 5 years, and maybe the political climate will have changed by then, and we can push forward. But I just never really feel like I would never be shocked if there was some like legislation that came that said next school year it couldn't be offered.
Okay.
It feels like that's where we are.
Sure. Thank you, Stephen. Cheyenne, I want to get your thoughts with regard to what we're hearing from Stephen in terms of having the course elevated to a more permanent course offering, and also just expanding the course possibly statewide. How feasible do you think that could be?
I think having goals is a great idea, and I think that we are in the right direction to achieve that. That would be the most ideal next step, is to have this implemented in every class, every district level. Indigenous history is Texas history. Native studies is Texas history. And at a higher level, like at university level, Texas history is a requirement in order to graduate. So why not make it a standard all across to include, that's a personal ambition of mine, to include that there is true and accurate information like Ames being out there taught and stretched out on all levels, especially as early as possible, maybe even elementary, My son is the 1% in his entire class size. Out of 288, he's the 1% of the indigenous population that's there. So that would be a great next goal, and getting the community to get involved and do that advocating, or going out and having those conversations where needed to get this continued on, so it doesn't get sundown, where essentially
Sunset.
it's delayed. Sunset. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Cheyenne and Stephen, both. Let's get some calls going here, listeners. 1-800-996-2848. I'm thinking there's got to be some parents right now, or grandparents, or maybe an auntie or an uncle who knows something about having to go to a school and talk to teachers, talk to administrators with regard to how Native history is being taught. You must have perspectives here in terms of how we're addressing this topic today. Give us a call, 1-800-99-NATIVE. Let's hear from some listeners. Let's get some calls going and get some feedback here. Really looking forward to some more folks joining the conversation. 1-800-996-2848. And with that, let's bring in Sashay Shetler, who is in Bismarck, North Dakota. She is with the Office of Indian and Multicultural Education for the North Dakota Office of Public Instruction. And Sashay, a Native Studies course has been mandated by the state of North Dakota since about 2021, I believe, so about 5 years. How has this been received in classrooms so far?
Sean, great question. I'm going to clarify a little bit. So SB 2304 was passed in 2021, and that requires all districts to implement Indigenous perspectives in history, right? So that was a huge bill, a historical bill, not just for North Dakota, but, for the nation. We're one of 10 states that have legislation protecting Indigenous content and curriculum in the classrooms. Something that we've worked on really hard for the past probably 10 years, if not since first contact, is the perspective and the understanding that we have of each other and how we can come together to build those bridges. So I'll highlight Bismarck Public Schools. They have a Indigenous Studies class that has, been offered for at least the last 10 years. Now it rotates. Sometimes a particular high school doesn't have enough students who sign up, so they push it off to the next semester, but those opportunities are there for our kids. Another area that I just want to highlight for SB 2304, which was passed in 2021, like you had mentioned, is that there's this perspective shift. And Cheyenne and Steve alluded to this as well. And in Cheyenne's, hope and vision for the future, I can absolutely align to that. It's this paradigm shift of, we not only need specific designated classes for these rich topics, but Indigenous students walk into the classroom, walk into their school every single day, and they not only deserve the chance to see themselves reflected in the class, in the curriculum, but it also builds community, and it also is protected by law, not just our current laws, but treaty rights as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sashay, another interesting development here has to do with textbooks that accompany these courses. What is the status of these textbooks, and who's making them?
Yeah, absolutely. Sean, I'll just add that that perspective shift, it comes with knowing that each standard that we have in North Dakota can attach an Indigenous perspective. So it's not just this class needs to happen, but there's this content standard on math or reading. How can we blend in an Indigenous perspective? And now content isn't the only area there. You also need high quality training to support educators, because Sean, I'll tell you, our educators are tired. They're overworked, they're underpaid, and they really deserve additional supports. So that's an additional perspective there for educators. But can you ask your question again, Sean?
The textbooks, yeah.
Yes, the textbooks. Perfect. Okay, so these textbooks that we have were originally published in the 90s. Now, Sean, I was born in 94, and they haven't been updated since. So that's about 30 years of rich history and perspective and developments within Indian country that we really believed needed to be embedded within the work that DPI does. So my boss, Lucy Fredericks, she actually started updating these books back in 2023, I believe. And prior to that, in 2015, she started the North Dakota Native American Essential Understandings. Now, it's really cool with these books because we've now blended the North Dakota Native American Essential Understandings with these textbooks. Now, these textbooks aren't curriculum from the department. They're resources. They're history and culture resources that weren't authored by the Department of Public Instruction. They were authored by the tribal nations that share the geography of North Dakota. And when they were originally published in the 90s, we only had 4 out of the 5 tribes. And Sisseton, Wahpeton, their headquarters are actually in South Dakota. So in the 90s, they thought, South Dakota is probably going to come out with some of these textbooks too. We'll just wait. Well, it's been about 30 years and South Dakota hasn't done that yet, so we decided to embed them in with our other textbooks. So now we have 6 in total, 5 that represent all of the tribal nations that share geography with North Dakota. And in addition, there is a new document also revised that talks about a journey to understanding and how we can come together and bridge connection and understanding so that we can not only build with the intentionality of the 7 generations of the past, but build with the intentionality of the 7 generations to come.
All right, Sashay, we're going to take another break. We'll come back, and I'm interested in learning a little bit more about what goes into these textbooks as they're described, especially with regard to the tribes that obviously contributed to this project, partnered with you folks on these textbooks. But first, we do have to take a short break, and we've still got those phone lines open for any listeners who would like to join this conversation, share your thoughts with regard to Native American studies courses potentially being on the chopping block in different school districts, public school districts in the United States. What's your thought? 1-800-99-NATIVE.
Tribal Development Partners, supporting tribal sovereignty through 105L leasing and essential infrastructure development. Tribal Development Partners will attend Res 2026 in booth 303 and are proud to support this show.
Need help identifying community priorities? Kaufman & Associates' approach to evaluation is rooted in Indigenous knowledge, honoring tribal history, and sovereignty. More at kaufmaninc.com, KAUFFMANINC.com.
This is Native America Calling. I'm your host, Sean Spruce, and we are talking with educators today about the importance of Native studies in schools in the wake of efforts to remove instruction that includes diverse voices. Does your school district include Native history or education courses? If so, do you feel that content is important to maintain? Or would you rather see a focus on other subjects? Share your thoughts. This is an open forum. You can call us at 1-800-996-2848. That is also 1-800-99-NATIVE. One of our guests today, Sashay Shetler, is with the North Dakota Office of Public Instruction. And Sashay, you were telling us about these textbooks, Native textbooks that are part of this coursework in the state of North Dakota, and they date back to the 1990s. And I'm interested in learning more about how tribes were involved in the creation of these textbooks and what types of feedback and a little bit more about the subject matter and the content that's encapsulated in them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your question, Sean. I'd love to highlight this project deeper. You know, like I had mentioned, we had started back in 2023 with this project, but some of the pieces that I really want to highlight are the partnerships in which and how we went about developing the books. So, you know, the department contracted with Sacred Pipe Resource Center and that's a local nonprofit that helped to support the connection and the communication with the tribal nations. Now, each of our tribal nations were involved in this process, in addition to their tribal educational directors, leaders, and we also had all of the tribal colleges. Now, this is huge because I'm literally thinking about how many partners work together to see this to fruition. So, from the Turtle Mountain Community College to the Spirit Lake Tribe to the United Tribes Technical College, the State Historical Society, the University of North Dakota, all these partners came together, but we wanted to make sure that this was authentically voiced from the tribal perspective. We wanted to hear from the tribal members and get their perspective, get their history, what they wanted to include, their tribal leaders, important aspects of their culture that they want to record, different areas of that work. But, with these books, each of the textbooks were designed and created by artists from each of the tribal nations. So Anishinaabe artists, did our Turtle Mountain book. Lakota, was able to do their Standing Rock. It's the artwork is just stunning. But in addition to that, we wanted to make sure that tribal nations had economic opportunity with this project and partnership. So we're also printing the books at tribally run print shops. With that, it has delayed the delivery, but we believe that this is so important that we do this right from start to end, that, we told our districts we're going to be coming out with this in the fall, and we appreciate your patience. Right now, you can access the Journey to Understanding and the prior books online.
Got it. Sashay, I have one more question for you, and then we're going to bring another guest into the conversation. But another part of your efforts to educate and advocate for students, you do outreach with elected officials. Tell me more about that and what it entails.
Yeah, so something that I'm working on right now, our department is working on with the collaboration with the Indian Affairs Commission. We have been working with the governor and his cabinet and providing opportunities for them to learn more about Indigenous peoples. And this is important because these are our community members who are creating policy and creating law. And if they don't have that opportunity to see from a different perspective, to really understand an Indigenous perspective and that historical narrative, then we can't really understand contemporary issues as they stand. So really highlighting that historical narrative and how the eras of Indian policy have impacted the work that we do today. So we've had several meetings. We had one where we talked about education, and we dug into the history, we dug into boarding schools, and we talked about how that relates to today. So it's not just, providing them with the information of, the history. It's also supporting, drawing that line to why this matters today and how we can utilize that information to build better policy that impacts not just North Dakota, but also their tri-citizens. And when I say tri-citizens, I mean, I'm a citizen of the MHA Nation. I'm also a citizen of North Dakota, and I'm also an American citizen. So when it comes down to it, our elected officials, our educators, our communities in North Dakota, they want to learn more, and they're asking for it, and we're supporting them in their learning.
All right. Thank you, Sashay. Let's head a little bit south now to South Dakota, Agency Village, South Dakota, in fact, where we have Dr. Sherry Johnson on the line. She is the Education Director for the Sistan Wahpeton Oyate, and of course, she's also an enrolled member of the Sistan Wahpeton Oyate. Sherry, you've been on the show before. Welcome back.
Well, thank you. And it's a hard follow with Sashay. I've definitely met that woman, and the power to them. So thank you very much for inviting me back to the show today.
Absolutely. Well, you have a lot to offer this discussion today, and I want to ask you about Osheti Shakowin, Essential Understandings. Tell our listeners more about this program.
Okay, so what the Osheti Shakoi Essential Understandings really are the only thing in South Dakota that are Native-based as far as standards go. So they're the only thing that has Native history, Native culture, Native teachings embedded in it. And they're set as understandings rather than standards. And so as such, it's always a concern because all of our tribes in South Dakota, and then we also have, we're also considered a North Dakota tribe. But our standards in South Dakota are mandated through our accreditation processes, whereas our Osheti Shakoi Essential Understandings are not. And as a result, that each of our school systems can opt in and opt out. They can choose to do it, or they can just shelve it on the wall and focus on whatever else they want to focus on for instruction. And so as tribal education directors, and I work with all the Great Plains Tribal Education Department directors throughout the state, we every year when it comes time for legislative actions, that's what we bring forward. We still want to have our Osheti Shakoi Essential Understandings mandated, because that way we can ensure that all of our schools, public and or all of our schools that are accredited through the state of South Dakota, are using them. And so as the only document the only standard document that has that in there, that's important to us.
Sherry, tell me more about these teachings, these understandings. What is the verbiage? What is included? What are the elements that are going into these classrooms and giving students the information and the history and the context that they need?
Okay, what is in our essential? In our essential understandings are really is our history. So any of our history, that part in where we came from, our origin stories, or anything that's Dakota, Lakota, Nakota are embedded in there. And we got an opportunity to add to them a few years back, but we were so limited with what we could actually add. It felt futile in that effort, because we are only requested to amend the verbiage that was included in there. And so it's been tough. And if anybody follows anything that's gone on in South Dakota, we had under our Governor Nome at that point in time, we had a whole revision of our standards. And one of the revision of the standards itself was our history and our government standards, our social studies standards. And so all of our tribes and all of our 9 tribes had resolutions or signatures against the South Dakota social studies standards. We did not agree with them. All of our teacher programs, our superintendent organizations, all of our organizations all also said this is not good for our children. But our board that approves them went ahead and approved them anyway. So you'll just have to look. I mean, it's really a work of art to look at the South Dakota social studies standards. Take a look at the kindergarten ones, and then you'll see why Native people think that things are not applicable for them, because it just doesn't embed what it is. The only mention that we have in there is Sacagawea. So we want to tell through the Osheti Shakoi Essential Understandings, those are what is more in line with our history, our pieces, our cultural, the sensitivity, the oral traditions. So.
Okay. And Sherry, there was an effort to mandate the Osheti Shakowin essential understandings in schools. It wasn't successful, though. Why not? What's the hurdle here?
I don't really know what the hurdle is. It just, I don't know. There's we have to live with all of our prejudice. I just have to say it right out there. And I don't want to get into ethnic, and that's what it really is all about is ethnicity. Sorry, I just came from a very heated conversation, and listening to all of that and talking about, let's make sure that all kids are learning the same thing. And sometimes we need that. We need that understanding, those essential understandings that are in there. We need all of that because that combats racism. When you have more knowledge about cultures, people, acceptance, then it makes a better world because we understand that. We're teaching that to our children. And they have more of an opportunity to have an open mind about things. So, and then if you think about it, beyond the Four Corner states, South Dakota has the largest number of Native students. Mm-hmm. So we are second when we're looking at that. And we battle so to have our right in our day.
Sherry, the pressure right now from the federal government and some state governments as well, as you describe, against education that they deem disparaging to the country, how is that changing your outlook as an educator?
Well, first of all, the DEI is really what you're talking about is DEI, and that's how is that? Wait, no, I got to look at the question. Well, anyway, the statement came down from D.C. that Indian tribes are not DEI. We are not diversity. We're not equity. We're inclusion. All that stuff. Mm-hmm. And when we're teaching people, we're not saying that anyone is better than all, but we need to have all the perspectives in there. Number one is we do have a treaty. We have many treaties, and we are First Peoples. We were here. This is our country. And when we talk about illegal aliens and everything, we were here. So for us to be even included in that, because there was a big fear at the beginning when all that started unrolling from the DC level about diversity and inclusion and everything, equity and inclusion, that was a big concern because where do the tribes fit in? Right.
And even though, Sherry, obviously you understand the difference here with regard to how, as Native people, a lot of our relationship with the federal government is built upon the treaty and trust responsibility, as opposed to these DEI initiatives that have come into favor in recent decades. But so many people don't understand that in the way that we do. So you must spend a lot of time having to educate people.
Oh, yes. And that's why, like places like this, even though I'm not real well prepared for this discussion here with you today, I said yes. It was last minute for me, but I said yes. I'm also late, but I still said yes because it needs to be said. It needs to be said what South Dakota and what battles all of our Native education directors and our education people are fighting, our parents. So we want that equal opportunity to have a good education that honors our heritage, our traditions, and our culture where we come from.
All right. Dr. Sherry Johnson, I'm glad you said yes to today's show and you joined us. Better late than never, huh?
Yes, for sure. And I apologize to everybody else in the world out there.
No worries. You are a busy woman. So I know your time is limited. Really, thank you very much for being on the show today. All of our guests who joined us. Unfortunately, we're out of time, so we're going to have to wrap up the conversation. But I do want to thank Dr. Sherry Johnson and also Sashay Shetler, Stephen Silva Brave, and Cheyenne Rendon. We'll be back tomorrow with another conversation. We will be talking about recent pushes for tribal sovereignty. And I hope you'll join us again. Tune in to Native America Calling. I'm your host, Sean Spruce. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Hear that? That's everything tribal college faculty do for their students on Fast Forward. Because if one tried to say it in real time, they'd be here all day. They teach, guide, comfort, and connect. And for that, the community is grateful. Learn more at mostthorough.jobdescription.com. The American Indian College Fund supports this program.
They give extensions, cheer progress, share laughter, create calm, and allow reflection. They inspire hope, share wisdom, guide gently, validate feelings.
Who protects Indian country? Amerind does. As the only 100% tribally owned insurance carrier, Amerind helps strengthen tribal communities by providing reliable insurance coverage and keeping dollars in Indian country. From property and liability to commercial auto and tribal workers' compensation, Amerind is here to protect what matters. Celebrating 40 years of serving Indian country. Learn more at amerind.com. That's AMERIND.com.
Native America Calling is produced in the Annenberg National Native Voice Studios in Albuquerque, New Mexico by Quantic Broadcast Corporation, a Native nonprofit media organization. Funding is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting with support from the Public Radio Satellite Service. Music is by Brent Michael Davids. Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.